Every Sunday on Patreon, I do a deep dive into some particular topic. And last Sunday, I did a deep dive into the State of the Union. That is, how the United States is doing right now. It's basically the speech that Joe Biden should be giving, but of course he's not. Now, this one was pretty successful, actually, and so with the permission of my supporters on Patreon, I've decided to post snippets of it online on my main channel so that you guys can hear what I had to say about how the United States is doing. I divided it into 4 parts, and this is the first part, and so yeah, here it is, and I hope you enjoy it. Hello, this is CRP speaking to you live, and this is the weekly webinar number 55 for April 18th, 2021. This is the State of the Union address that Joe Biden will not give. For those of you who aren't from the United States, the president usually gives a speech to the joint session of Congress every year called the State of the Union address. And this address is a broadcast throughout the country. It's a live event, usually in February. And so far, Joe Biden, who was inaugurated January 20th, well, he has not given the State of the Union address. He's supposed to give one by the end of this month of April. But I suspect that it's not going to happen. But before I get started, I just want to do, as usual, a quick sound check. Give me a +1 if you guys can hear me properly. You should be seeing, it says State of the Union on your screen, and you should be hearing my dual set tones as I speak to you now. I'm looking at the comments here, and it looks like you guys are hearing me. Great, fantastic. It's fantastic to know that you guys are hearing me. And, well, here's my ugly mug for those of you who are interested. Hello there. I am speaking to you live. I am a real human being. Yes, I am not a CGI device like Joe Biden might possibly be, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like, come on. You guys heard about that story a few weeks ago? Man, hang on. Let me take off my sweatshirt. It's a little bit hot here. You guys might have heard that he was talking to some reporters, and just a weird incident happened with point of view and perspective, that it seemed as if his hand was going like over some microphones, and people were saying, that's CGI. That is, they green screened him. He's not really there. The fact that people actually believed this for a while, and I'll admit, when I saw the video at first, I was like, yeah, it could be. But then some other videos emerged from different points of view, and it became clear that, no, it was just a very weird accident. But see, something like that would never have occurred to me with, say, Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or George W. Bush. It happens with Joe Biden because we all know that the man is senile. The man is just old and pathetic and decrepit. And he's a piece of shit. I personally think that he's probably a pedophile. But now the problem isn't so much as pedophilia. It's the problem that he is barely alive. I mean, it really is the weekend at Bernie's presidency. So anyway, what I was saying about the State of the Union address is that usually the president gives this State of the Union address, and as this name of the speech implies, he says more or less what's going on in the United States, and he gives his prescription to solve the future problems, and he presents his legislative agenda, if you will. That's what a lot of presidents have used the State of the Union address to do. Actually, offhand, I'm not quite sure if it's not a legal requirement. The president doesn't have to do it, but it's sort of like a tradition. But I'm not sure if it's actually inscribed in the Constitution or not. It's not really important. The point is that, see, it's funny that Joe Biden has been avoiding this giving his State of the Union address. So I'm going to give that State of the Union address, because there were a lot of questions. As you know, I asked a lot of I asked people what topics they would like me to discuss, and there are a lot of very interesting topics. I was surprised by the number of people who are interested in me talking about Ukraine. I'm going to talk about Ukraine in this broadcast when I cover the issues of foreign policy that are affecting the United States. At this time, I don't see a war coming, and I'm pretty certain about it. And I'll explain to you why. It's a very simple reason. It's the exchange rate. The exchange rate here in Ukraine is not moving. And that leads me to conclude that there isn't going to be any war. There's going to be a lot of posturing, but no actual war. But I'll get to that in a moment. The topics that you all gave me, the Ukrainian issue was number one. I mean, a lot of people asked me about that. I mean, or let me rephrase that. There were a couple of people who asked it, and they each got like 19, 20 upvotes each. And the other big topic was how to raise a daughter in these very, very difficult times. And I'm going to do a video on that. I'm going to do a video on that, and I'm going to post it probably this week. Yeah, because I have some other topics that I have, but that seemed to be a topic that a lot of people were interested in. And so I'll do a produced video about that, which I think would be entertaining for you and fun for me. And so, all good. So anyway, let me get started with today's topic, the State of the Union. I'm going to just, put myself out of the picture because, you guys don't need to see me. And so the State of the Union. So here's the first half of the outline of the show. I'm going to talk about economy, foreign affairs, and internal affairs. And so the first thing that we have to understand about the United States is that something that Americans sometimes often don't really like to realize, that the United States is in many ways the world's largest free trade area. Okay, and in a lot of ways, people go to the United States not for the culture or anything else, but to make money. It's a place to make money, to make your fortune, where you're free enough and you have enough opportunities that you can pretty much do whatever you want. The United States, in so many ways, is an economic institution rather than a cultural one. Certainly not a racial one. The United States was originally settled by English settlers, Puritans mostly, but not exclusively. Do keep in mind that New York, or present-day New York, originally New Amsterdam, was a hodgepodge of different ethnic groups and whatnot. But first there was the British and the slaves that they brought. And then starting in the late 18th century, because of the decimation wrought by the Civil War, which killed so many men, the United States started importing a lot of people for two reasons. Number one, to make up for the lost men of the Civil War. And number two, because it needed a population to conquer this enormous continent. Because starting in 1865, there was this concerted effort to, fulfill manifest destiny. That is, the notion that the United States would stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And so all of these European populations were imported, but all these European populations were radically different. There were Swedes, Italians, Irish, French, German, all kinds of different people. And they all settled in different places, and it became like this smorgasbord, right? This ethnic smorgasbord. People say, oh, they're all white. No, they're not all white. Or let me rephrase that. They are all white, but they are of radical different cultural backgrounds. And it created this blend of America, kind of in a very real sense, like without any culture, but all of them striving towards the same thing. And that same thing was to make a lot of money. The United States has always been an economic powerhouse because the more capable people from around the world would go to America to make their fortune, because they saw it as a place where they could be free from the social constraints of their old country, wheresoever that old country might happen to be. They could go to the United States, they could be free, make a shit ton of money, and live the life that they wanted to. And that's what people wanted. That's what America is. And the economy is the base of the American project. And without this base, you're in shitloads of trouble. Now, the economy right now, as I'm recording this, I'm doing this webinar, the unemployment is officially 6%. It's fallen quite a bit officially. Now, that's the U3 number of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, if you look it up, the Bureau of Labor Statistics issues a series of different numbers. They're all called U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, U6, and I think U6 is the last one, yeah. And they represent different conditions. Like, for instance, U6 is those who are employed, but also part-time employment, that sort of thing. I mean, there are different numbers for different reasons, but U3 is the typical number for unemployment, and it's officially at 6%. However, Jerome Powell, who is, as you may know, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, that is It's the central bank of the United States. He's the chairman of it. He is a very, very big deal. He believes, and he said in Congress last week, that unemployment, real unemployment, is closer to 10%. He thinks that it's just shy of 10%. That's what the Federal Reserve has been estimating. And, you know, they have a whole office building full of PhDs in economics, okay? Economics and statistics. So if he thinks that it's closer to 10%, you better fucking believe that he's right. Now, Shadow Stats, which is an outfit run by John Williams, I highly recommend it if you're interested in getting accurate data, or if not necessarily accurate data, but a different view on the data. Shadow Stats is of the opinion that unemployment is closer to 25%. And the reason John Williams over at Shadow Stats says that is because starting in 1994, the Bureau of Labor Statistics started discounting people who were unemployed for over, I believe it was 18 months. They simply discounted them from the workforce. And that's why the labor participation rate, which is the people who are of the population who are actively seeking employment, the adult population, of course, has dropped precipitously over the last few decades because they started discounting those people who were unemployed for over 18 months. I think it was 18 months. It might have been 12 months. It doesn't really matter. It's long-term unemployed is the point. And these people who are long-term unemployed, they are no longer counted in the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, and nor are they counted by the Federal Reserve. Shadow Stats by John Williams, they still count them. And he says it's about 25%. It's a little over 25%, as a matter of fact. How can I put it? You should look around in your neighborhood in the United States and see how many people are employed. I mean, able-bodied adults who are desperate for money and don't have like independent means, how many of them are unemployed? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing you should ask. So anyway, the unemployment situation is not good. Even if it's 10%, as Jerome Powell believes, 10% is a huge number, okay? So to say that, oh, it's only 10%, you know, it's like saying, oh, it's only a little cancer, okay? It's not good, okay? Yeah, so that's the unemployment number. The national debt of the United States, this is the federal government, mind you. The federal government debt is at 28 trillion. Now, roughly 20 trillion of that is publicly held. What does that mean? It's held by individuals, foreign countries, banks, insurance companies, and whatnot. Roughly 8 trillion is held by intra-agency. It's not important for this conversation. The important thing is that the United States is in the hole for 28 trillion. That's the total debt of the United States. Now, what's very important about that debt, okay, is not so much the debt itself, but the interest. The interest is what kills you. They always teach you that, right? See, the interest payments of the United States are coming up to about 15% of the annual US budget. Now, that is a serious, serious number, okay? So anyway, it's 28 trillion, 15% roughly. I think it's 13%. And the key issue, of course, is that if the interest rates were to rise, that interest payment would be enormous, would break the American government. I mean, literally break it. They would not be able to afford to pay the interest on the outstanding debt, okay? Now, state debt, that is the debt of the individual states in the United States, is 2.65 trillion, okay? So you add it all up, that's roughly $30.65 trillion, okay? Let's call it 31 trillion, okay? That is, what, about 130% of the US GDP? Yeah, that's Italy numbers. That's insane amount of debt, okay? And I haven't even counted agency debt. Well, it's not that much. It's only like $1 trillion, but still, it's only $1 trillion. But anyway, so the United States is way over indebted. Inflation, the official number is 2.3%. Shadow Stats, which is on this issue is fairly conservative, thinks it's closer to 6%. And what's interesting is that the regional measurements by private parties, private companies, banks, and what have you, they estimate that regionally, depending on the region, but using the same basket of goods, it's closer to 7 to 13%. It's in that range, okay? There have been regions where inflation is 13% and other regions where it's 7%, and they haven't found a region where it's less than 7%. Now that's really fucking interesting, okay? And a lot of people are saying that, yeah, that feels about right, because people are talking about gas prices, people are talking about lumber prices. There's also an issue of food prices. People who shop regularly for food have been noticing it. Yeah, you know, the inflation is on the rise, okay? So the economy in the United States is not doing too well, because basically from just these numbers, you have a problem of over-indebtedness, you have a problem of inflation that's rearing its head, and quite erratically, and you have large unemployment. Now, ordinarily, people would say, this is a recipe for stagflation. Stagflation is a portmanteau of the words stagnation and inflation. And it's the notion that an economy is in a situation whereby the people are not working, you know, there's a lot of unemployment, and at the same time prices are rising because commodity prices are going up. There's enough economic activity to bring up inflation, but not so much activity that it soaks up the unemployment, okay? And in such a situation, the only way to stop stagflation is to actually tighten interest rates rather drastically to spark a recession, wipe out, bankrupt a lot of the stagnant businesses, and slowly get out of it, slowly get out of this inflationary hole with a stronger currency. But the problem is that that measure, which was implemented in 1980 through 82 by Paul Volcker when he was chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, it can't be implemented now because the American economy, it's not only that it's too fragile, it's that if interest rates rise, it would bankrupt too many people, including the federal government, let alone the states. See, they can't raise interest rates. And if you can't raise interest rates, then inflation just starts to spiral. Because what happens is, of course, you know, commodity prices go up, right? And so you use commodities in your factory to produce your widget. So if your commodity prices go up, you charge more for your widget and you put it out there into the market. And the people, what do? Well, they have to pay more for your widget. And so they turn around and try to get more money somewhere, and they demand more money from their employer. And the employer might say, okay, acquiesce. And there goes more inflation and more inflation, because that employer charges that higher wage cost to the customer. And that's how you have a spiral of inflation. And you have to nip that shit in the bud. But they're not going to be able to, because the only way to nip that thing is to hike interest rates, to make money more expensive, to cool down the economy, to essentially deliberately cause a recession so as to cool down the economy and nip the inflationary spiral. But they can't do that, okay? So that's the conditions we have right now. This is, to those of you who might not understand this, okay, who you know, your eyes glaze over when I talk about this shit, imagine it's like this really big bonfire with a whole bunch of logs and kindling, and it's been doused in gasoline, okay? Now, there's nobody around with a match, right? But, you know, it's just a matter of time. I mean, shit, it could be like, you know, a lightning strike will set it off. And so you see the problem? See, it's created these conditions whereby the dollar might explode, as I did in a video a couple of days ago about with hyperinflation. And, you know, the whole economy goes up in flames, okay? Because if the dollar breaks and goes into very high inflation or hyperinflation, then the whole economy collapses, okay? It collapses because what happens is that as prices just go out of sight, people start selling everything that they have in order to get cash to buy food, to buy basic necessities, okay? Companies start to shut down because they have goods that they cannot pay the suppliers for the raw materials, and they cannot charge their customers because of hyperinflation. So everything starts to shut down as the currency spirals out of control. That's the problem with hyperinflation, okay? I mean, this is serious shit, no fucking around. And right now, the economy, in terms of the basic conditions, it's just ready to blow, okay? So yeah, that's where we're at insofar as the economy. This is a bad, bad, bad place to be. You're over-indebted, inflation is on the rise, You cannot afford higher interest rates, and you got a shit ton of people who are unemployed. And we're still, because of COVID, a lot of people don't want to be employed. They want to sit on their asses because they've gotten used to it. Because the government is shipping money to them, you know, with stimulus checks and whatnot. So a lot of people are like, fuck it, I'm not going to work. Why would I bother? I'm going to get a stimulus check. I'll muddle through somehow. I'm not going to pay the rent because, you know, because of COVID, they passed laws where, you know, you can't get evicted. You know, and so it's a lot of people are taking advantage of it because it's human nature. Okay, it's not because they're evil. It's not because they're lazy bums. It's because of human nature. Okay, if somebody's giving you free money and they're not kicking you out of your apartment that you haven't paid for in months, well, what are you going to do? You're going to keep on doing it, right? Because that's how people are, you know. So anyway, that's where the economy is. It sucks. It's like I said, a bonfire doused in gasoline, waiting for a match, and everybody's fucking terrified. And so far as the stock market is concerned, that it's going higher and higher, that doesn't mean anything, because what's going on is that the Federal Reserve is goosing the stock market. Imagine this: you are a cancer patient, right? And you have terminal cancer, and the doctor loads you up on morphine. Do you feel good? Fuck yeah! You're stoned as stoned as fuck on morphine, which is fantastic. I've been stoned on morphine. I had kidney stones when I was 21. I took morphine, like the really good kind, right? The pharmaceutical kind. Holy shit, that was the cleanest, best high I've ever had, man. Yeah. But, you know, it just masks the symptoms. That's the whole point of morphine. That's basically what's been going on with the stock market. It's going up and up and up, but it's just masking the problems. Okay. It's unreal. And it benefits rich people, but it doesn't benefit the common man, the majority of the population. Okay. Okay. So that's the economy. In other words, it's in serious trouble. Now, foreign affairs. In foreign affairs, the United States has essentially two countries that are